Hi everybody, it's Wendy from Cinnamon Sweet Shop, and today I am holding one of my signature heart cookies. This is the picture that's in my profile and on many of my websites and blogs. Today I'm going to show you how to make this yourself. It's not only a pretty cookie, it tastes great, and it's so easy to make as well. One of the most talked about parts of my signature cookie is the piece of chocolate candy in the center, which I do make myself. Now you can buy a heart-shaped candy if that's easier for you, but I use this candy mold, and it's a Wilton candy mold. Don't even know if they make them anymore because it's that old, and you can see it's kind of yellow from wear and tear. But I use this particular design because it's kind of fancy. It has a little heart in the center. I melted up some cocoa butter and I colored it with a food coloring made specifically for chocolate, and that's the only kind of food coloring you ever want to put in chocolate because it's an oil-based food coloring and it won't ruin your chocolate. If I didn't have the cocoa butter, this would be one of the rare occasions that I would use candy melt, because if you watch my other videos, you know how much I don't like using candy melts. But in this case, this little bit wouldn't even be that big of a deal. I'm just going to use the cocoa butter and fill in the heart shape, and that's just about it. And I'm using a paintbrush specifically for cake decorating, and just filling this in a little bit. It's really only going to take about a minute or less for the red chocolate or the candy melts, whatever you use, to firm up enough to fill in the rest. So while I'm waiting for that to firm up, that's when I usually melt my chocolate and just pour the chocolate into the molds. Just fill it up to the line and then pound it a bit on the counter just to get any of the air bubbles out, and it will also even it. You want the backs to be nice and flat. That's another reason why you want to make sure your chocolate is thin. So if you melt it, because with candy melts, if you're using them, sometimes they melt and they're really kind of thick, and you have to thin it out with vegetable shortening or some sort of fat. Never thin it out with water. I have these with a nice flat back, and they're going to harden because I want them to lay flat on the cookie. While waiting for the chocolate to set, now's a good time to make your design on the edible sugar sheet. Now I use the edible decorating paper in the Damask, I guess that's how it's pronounced, style from Wilton. We also have animal print and other designs, and other companies make other designs as well. Now these can be kind of expensive, so what I usually do to save some money is I use the coupon that the craft stores offer. Sometimes it's 40%, sometimes it's 50%. This is what the sheet looks like when you take it out. It is a bit flimsy, it's not sticky at all, and it is edible. It's made of mostly sugar and cornstarch. On the flip side of this sheet, with the exact same cookie cutter I used to cut out the cookies and an edible marker, just trace around. And then with a pair of kitchen scissors, just going to cut out this image. These scraps, don't throw them out. You can always use them on other cookies. You can cut out little stars, put them on cupcakes and cakes as well. In the baking process, the cookie does spread. So your image won't fit exactly to the ends of the cookie, but that's okay because we are going to put a nice red shell border around it. And to adhere the image to the cookie, I'm just going to use a real little bit of water and a paintbrush and just lightly go around the edges of the cookie, or the edges of the image rather. And you don't want to use too much water because it will dissolve the sugar sheet. And just get a little bit in the center, just real lightly. You could also use some piping gel or a very thin coating of royal icing if you want to use that instead. And I'm going to lightly press the image onto the cookie. And then I'm going to let that set for a few minutes. You'll be able to tell when the candy is set by the fact that it just pops right out of the mold when it is set. And I have some pieces here that are just the little edges that I want to take off. Try and keep this as smooth as possible. I like to border the cookie first before putting the candy on. I have a tip 21 shell tube that I'm going to be using and some red royal icing at a fairly thick consistency. We want the shell border to hold our shape. I like turning the cookie around just to get it to the right angle. I'm going to be doing my shell border. This is the only piping necessary for this particular cookie, and shell borders are fairly easy to make. So this is a good cookie for someone who really just doesn't like cookie decorating. Maybe you're not good at doing some of those fancy piping techniques, not a problem, but you could just doing a shell border in red. Then I'm going to turn the cookie this way and make the shell in this direction. Now, if you would like, instead of using a chocolate candy, you could always put a royal icing rose and perhaps a few rose buds. I just like the chocolate in the center better. It makes it look a little nicer. And I'm just going to attach it by putting a little bit of royal icing on the back of the candy and then pushing the chocolate down. To get the recipe for this cookie, make sure you go to the link below. Go to my website at cinnamonsweetshoppe.com. Subscribe to this YouTube channel for much, much more. And don't forget to check out some of my live broadcasts on Periscope. You can reach me at CinSweetShoppe. I also have that linked below. And I'll see you next time.